I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 8:32. We're going to have an invocation. If you are now having an invocation, if anyone who wants to participate can, but you're strictly voluntary. Dr. Callis, why don't you open us in prayer?
Yes, sir. I'd be glad to. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, can people please bow their heads? Lord Jesus Christ, the only Savior that we know, please watch over all of us today during this commission meeting. Please let us have clear and sound judgment and respect that we all are created under one entity, your love, your spirit, and your kindness. Also, Lord, please pray for everyone throughout this world, but especially the people in Texas that are fighting the front lines against this bad, evil disease called coronavirus. Please protect our healthcare workers, our emergency responders, but most importantly, any and all your people, because they all believe in you, Lord Jesus. Lord Jesus, please continue to watch over us, guide us, and steer us on a correct path with your love, mercy, and kindness. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, Tamara, will you please call roll?
Yes, sir. Chairman Rick Figueroa.
Here.
Vice Chairman Tom Butler.
Here.
Dr. Ray Callis.
Here.
Dr. Gary Wesson.
Here.
Commissioner Helen Collier. Commissioner Nora Castaneda. You have a quorum, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we accept the excuses of the two commissioners that are not available or present today.
All right, there's a motion, there's a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on to public. Now, before we do this, I want to make a couple of comments. One is I don't even know where to look anymore. I'm looking at three different things here, so God love me. I don't. It's not that I'm ignoring. I'm just trying to figure this thing out. We live in extraordinary times. For whatever reason, we've been chosen to be here at this time. I want to press on each and every one. Thank you for doing your job. Thank you for staying the course. Thank you for being into the process beyond not being contained by a thing called virus, right? And so I want to thank Dr. Wesson, thank Commissioner Butler, Dr. Callis for your efforts. And I want to make sure that we as a team, as TDR, is very aware that everybody here is scrambling to accommodate what we say the change, but make no mistake about it, we're striving for the purpose of being face to face. That we are relational human beings. We're going to push that, and that's going to be something I'm going to push. So I want us to be aware of that, because I think the intimacy of that, and nobody should be left alone with Dr. Wesson's in a conference room. That should never be the case. So thank you, God. Wesson, Callis, I blame y'all for that. Butler, I blame you for that. All right, that was comedy. We'll move on to item C on the public comment. We're accepting public comments in writing and by video and teleconference call. For those who submitted the request in advance to speak in the commission, we received, I think, 4. How many, Brad? 4 written comments?
I would defer to Tim on
Okay.
that.
I think, commissioners, you got your written comments.
Chairman, we received 2 written comments and 2 requests to speak.
Okay, 4 total, 2 written, 2 requests. We'll bring the first commentary to the meeting. That person will have 3 minutes to speak. We'll have a brief pause while we bring the next commentary into the meeting, and then the person will have 3 minutes to speak as well. So, Tam, you want to go with the first public commenter?
Yes, sir. We're going to bring in Ms. Price. It will be just 1 second, and we'll get her added to the meeting.
Absolutely.
Ms. Price is here.
Ms. Price, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, I'm gonna read some instruction to you and then we'll go from there. Thank you for joining us today.
Sure.
Please say your name and who you represent. You'll have 3 minutes. Tamara will keep time. Please understand the commissioners are not allowed to ask questions or engage in discussion with you, anything about that's not specifically on our agenda. Please also understand that the commissioners cannot hear any information about a pending complaint or enforcement case because we may also be the decision maker in that case. You understand, Ms. Price?
Yes, sir, I do.
Perfect. All right, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, Ms. Price.
You got it. My name is Jessica Price, and I'm representing myself. I've been a licensed massage therapist since 1997. I'm also a small massage business owner with 2 locations in the Austin area and have just recently created my own massage school, the Deep Academy School of Massage. So I have a licensed massage school. So I wanted to speak to you guys briefly today to let you know some concerns I have with the rulemaking process to implement SB 1130, a bill by Senator Kelly Hancock that was passed earlier this year. SB 1130 allows the classroom portion of the massage therapy course to be taught online. My school plans to teach the classroom portion of the class online, as is allowed by the bill. The other required 250 hours of hands-on massage training will be taught in person at my massage school. So I'm speaking to you today to bring to your attention a potential issue and concern that I have. Recently, at the July 26 Massage Therapy Advisory Board meeting, the advisory board approved for publication some proposed rules that limit the ways in which massage therapy can be taught online by, for example, adding a requirement that the course be interactive. The proposed rules give examples of some methods that can be used to make the course count as interactive. As I understand it, the rules are based off of concepts in the Department of Education's recent rules for distance education. However, I would point out that there are no such rules for the cosmetology program, which are also allowed to teach the classroom portion of their courses online. Neither are there any such rules for massage therapy continuing ed that is taught online. 2 members of the Massage Therapy Advisory Board, who are also massage school owners, were pretty vehemently opposed to SB 1130 and testified against it. The chair of the advisory board went so far to try to create a grassroots email campaign to block the bill. In the end, the bill passed almost unanimously without changes suggested by the advisory board members. Our concern is that these members may try to further restrict the rules or the interpretation of the rules to make offering or attending the online portion of the curriculum, which does not have to be live according to the bill, to be too onerous to be effective in ensuring the goals of the bills are met. The goals of the bill were to create more flexibility for students and also make it more affordable for folks to, become a massage therapist. And being a massage business owner, we need more massage therapists. We need more hires. So it would create more jobs for the state of Texas. So that was ultimately the goal. And we have full faith that the TDLR leadership staff will do their best, that the final regulations are not written or interpreted in a manner that would frustrate the purpose of the bill. However, because the final rules must be passed by December 1st, I did not know I'd have another chance. So this was a timely opportunity to bring up my concerns to the commission. I chose to speak today, so thank you all for hearing me out.
Ms. Price, thank you so much for your time and your information that you've given us, and we look forward to working through this, okay?
Absolutely. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Tamara, you're the next commentator.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Mr.
Thank you.
Sims is our next commenter.
Mr. Sims, is that correct?
Yes, sir, and he's here.
Mr. Sims, can you hear me? You're on mute, Mr. Sims.
All right, am I still on mute?
No, you're not. I can hear you now. There you go, Mr. Sims. Okay. Well, welcome to TDLR Commission. I'm going to read you some instructions, and then we'll go from there. Okay, Mr. Sims?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Please say your name and who you represent. You'll have 3 minutes. Please understand the commissioners are not allowed to ask questions or engage in discussion with you about anything that is not specifically on our agenda. Please also understand the commission cannot hear any information about pending complaint or enforcement case because we may ultimately be the decision makers in that case. Mr. Sims, you understand what I said?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, yes, sir.
You're good, you're fine. All right, Mr. Sims, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
My name is Rufus Sims. I'm representing myself. Uh, the reason that I'm on a meeting is because for an electrical license. I've been in the electrical field for 8 years. I started schooling in 2013. I finished it, and then I went back to schooling in 2015. I did not finish it because I started working with a company, Winco, and I recently lost my license, so I'm trying to. Well, not recently, but I lost my license, so I'm trying to get it back. I don't know what else to say, but that's about it.
We'll reach out to Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
That's fine.
Mr. Sims, first of all, thanks for your time again. One of our staff's gonna reach out to you. Can you hear me, Mr. Sims?
Yes, sir.
Okay. One of our staff will reach out to you, kind of walk you through the process. One of them, again, encourage you, stay the course, there's a process. They'll walk you through that to make sure that you use every resource you can to get your license back, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for your time, Mr. Sims.
Thank you too.
You're welcome. Now, Brian, will you follow up on that?
Yes, sir. Doing it right now.
Thank you. Okay, all right. Tam, is there any other commentaries?
No, sir, that concludes our public comment.
Perfect. All right. We're gonna go to executive session. By the way, again, I can't not commend the staff here for doing an amazing job. I feel like I'm in a newsroom, but it's working. So, thank you again, Tam and Christina, on what you guys are doing. We're gonna go to executive session to consult with our attorney under sections 551.071, section 1, and 551.071, section 2, the government code. The time is 8:45. How much time do we need, Mr. Bowman?
We shouldn't take more than 20 minutes.
Okay, then we'll meet after the executive session. We'll come back and take a break, and we'll come back here, let's say at 9:05, and pick up on any action items from executive session, and then begin the contested cases. now 9:16. We're gonna return from executive session. There were no action items needed out of executive items, on the executive items, so we're gonna move on to item F, which is the authorization of electronic signatures. Can I have a motion for that?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Minutes, board commissioners, you had the minutes in front of you.
So moved.
Any commentary? So moved. Any other commentary before? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Chairman, that was a second by Dr. Weston, okay?
Yeah. All right, we're on to item contested cases. If anyone has indicated they're appearing today for a case, staff's provided them with information on how to connect to this meeting. We'll bring them into the meeting when we announce the case. So we're gonna go through items H, which I think Suriano and Jessica Hurtado, are you on there? Jessica?
We're bringing them in now, Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Soriano is here.
Okay.
Yes, we're here.
All right, Jessica, can I see you as well?
Yes, good morning.
Okay.
Can you hear?
Give me a second here. I want to make sure I get through this. Mr. Soriano, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I'm Chairman Figueroa. I'm gonna read you some instructions on this case. If you have any challenge, or if you want me to slow down for any reason, because I know you've got an interpreter, please just raise your hand or wave at me or something to that effect, okay? So if you don't understand something, just feel free to stop me at any point in time, okay?
Okay, thank you.
We'll hear from the prosecutor first, and then we'll hear from respondent. We'll have an opportunity to speak. Make sure you speak clearly and say your name and who you represent. Each side will have 5 minutes to speak. Sam will keep time. We'll give up to 3 minutes for rebuttal if needed. Please understand the commission can only consider information that is in the record form when the case was heard at the SOA hearing. So anything in the SOA hearing is what we're gonna look at, Mr. Strong. If you must limit your comments to these matters that we presented there. All right, do you understand, Mr. Strong?
Yes.
Perfect, okay. Jessica, you go ahead and go.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Jessica Hurtado, and I am a prosecutor in the Enforcement Division. I ask that you modify the PFD as written and deny Miguel Soriano's application for an apprentice electrician license. Respondent was previously licensed as a journeyman electrician. However, that license was revoked by operation of law in 2017 when he went to prison for indecency with a child by sexual contact. Sometime around May 2015, the victim in this case made an outcry of sexual abuse by Mr. Soriano to her sister. The respondent was in a relationship with the victim's mother, and the victim was 13 years old at the time. When questioned by the authorities, the victim described an incident where Mr. Soriano started rubbing her genitals underneath her clothing while she was asleep in bed. On another occasion, the victim awoke to the respondent rubbing the victim's chest, also underneath her clothing.
Ms. Hurtado, can I stop you for a second, please, ma'am? Tamala, can you please put everyone on mute? I'm getting a lot of reverb through the speaker system, please.
That should get it.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
Fix that issue.
Go ahead, Ms. Hurtado. I'm sorry, Chairman. I just couldn't hear and understand what she was saying.
No, just wait, and I'll be happy to do it. I think we're all on mute, except for Mr. Thielen, but go ahead, Ms. Jessica, go ahead.
Okay.
Thielen.
The victim stated that respondent had touched her inappropriately on several occasions. In October 2017, a jury convicted Mr. Soriano of indecency with a child by sexual contact, and he was sentenced to serve 2 years in prison. He was released from prison on October 3rd, 2019, and subsequently submitted his apprentice electrician license application. At the hearing, respondent testified that he is a member of his local union and that he wishes to continue working as an electrician to support his family. As part of his union work, he would receive jobs that would send him to various job sites depending on what assignment he received. Mr. Soriano also denied that the offense had ever occurred, testifying at the hearing, was Mr. Soriano's prior girlfriend and now spouse, along with her daughter, the victim of respondent's abuse. Both testified that Mr. Soriano needs his license in order to support them financially. The ALJ considered that respondent was 42 years old at the time of the offense, that the crime was very serious, and that it bears on his fitness to hold a license because he will have potential access to children if allowed to be licensed. While Mr. Soriano made some rehabilitative efforts while in prison, none of those efforts were focused on sex offender treatment. The ALJ concluded that respondent is not yet fit to hold an unrestricted license. The ALJ also concluded that respondent should be given a restricted license with restrictions limiting him to working at new construction, industrial facilities, or commercial job sites, and prohibiting work in occupied residential locations, requiring him to be supervised on site by a master or journeyman electrician who has agreed to exercise reasonable care in supervising respondent, and requiring him to report to the department any change in his supervision. However, I have great concerns regarding the feasibility of getting another licensee to agree to supervise respondent on site at each job he is assigned to work at. According to Mr. Soriano, he gets his job assignments through his union hall, and those job sites may vary based on the type of work available. Additionally, there is no evidence in the record, and the department is not currently aware of any other licensee who is willing to supervise the respondent at each job site he's assigned to. Without supervision by another licensee, there is simply no way the department can ensure that Mr. Soriano will respect the limitations on the types of job sites he can work at. Because I do not believe a restricted license is feasible for the respondent, given his current circumstances, I ask that you reject that portion of the PFD and deny the respondent's electrical license application. However, if the commission feels a restricted license is appropriate, I ask that you remand this case back to myself to work with the respondent to obtain a qualified and vetted supervisor. And I ask that you give the respondent a deadline of 30 days from today to provide information regarding that supervisor to the department. If the respondent is unable to get another licensee to volunteer to supervise him on site at each job location, I can bring this case back to the commission at the next meeting. Well, I will again ask that you deny his license application, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
All right, commissioners, any questions for Jessica? Okay, Mr. Serrano, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I want to make sure, we want to keep the comments to the SOA hearing case. I'm gonna give you 5 minutes to state your case. You don't need to take all 5 minutes, you don't need it, but just let us know. Let me know again, if for any communication, we need to slow down, we'll do that, okay?
Thank you. So my name is Efren. I'm here as a translator for Mr. Miguel Soriano. He wrote a letter in Spanish and I translated to English. That's what I'm about to read you all. Thank you for giving us a second opportunity to appeal my case to reobtain my electrician license. As I had mentioned previously, I served my full sentence of 2 years being an innocent man. Also, due to lack of resources, I was not able to appeal the verdict. Even though we are living through some very difficult times and the seriousness of what I was accused of, I am extremely happy as my wife and stepdaughter have both stood by me during these difficult times. And as a family, we continue to move forward spiritually and grateful for what we have. Also, I would like to emphasize that my wife was offered by a prosecutor a bribe to declare that I actually committed what I was being accused of, with a promise that the system would help her obtain her residency. She did not accept the offer. Early on, my stepdaughter came forward that she was grieving the death of her father, did not want to see another man replace her father, and made an error in life. Though this has affected my life to a level never imagined, Sandy is my daughter, and I will always be there to support her and her dreams. I will never hurt her and we have grown stronger as a family since completing my sentence. I fully understand that the system has to react based on the initial accusations, but never once did the system listen to my wife, especially my daughter, when she realized the consequences of her words. I'm a good and a humble person that loves my family. Since I received my citizenship back in 2012, I have been a positive contributor to society and have always focused on a better life for all of us. Since my release, I have focused solely on my family. We continue to grow together and face all the challenges in life in a positive and respectful manner. My life is my family, and my family depends on me to provide. We are here in front of you all asking for a second opportunity in life in reestablishing of my license. Thank you all for the opportunity and listening to our appeal. With us, we also have his wife, Maria Guadalupe Salazar, and his daughter-in-law, Sandy Rodriguez, who originally made the accusation, and they are here in front of you all. They're just sitting right next to me right now on my sofa to answer and to also, talk to y'all about the situation if you have any questions that you want to direct their way. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you so much. What was your name again? I'm sorry, sir.
My first name is Efren Rivera.
Rivera, Mr. Rivera. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being there, Mr. Serrano. Okay, commissioners, any questions or comments? Okay, all right, just one comment, commissioners, I want you to know, as we build this, right, we're looking at these probationary licenses. Jessica suggested a 30-day, that's a suggestion, could be a 60-day, could be a 40-day, could be whatever. We are not trying to precast something. I want you to give yourself some opportunity, as each case is independent. But we try to make it as equitable as possible, but each case has its own unique characteristics. So just giving you that context, okay? So any questions for Jessica in regards to the enforcement or Mr. Serrano?
I'm just going to translate to Mr. Miguel.
Mr. Rivera, hang on, just give me a second, just give me 1 second. I had a commissioner had a comment for it. I want you to hold that for me.
I was just gonna say, I'd probably think about referring this back to enforcement, because of the fact on how his jobs were gonna be let out and not having anybody supervise him, but maybe instead of 30 days to find somebody, maybe 60 days, being that we're kind of in a strange time, it might take a little bit longer to find somebody, to have them supervise his enforcement on a restricted license.
Mr. Rivera, go ahead.
So básicamente lo quieren mandar para atrás.
Mr. Rivera, go ahead and unmute. We're okay with you here. Go ahead and explain. We'll wait for you. Go ahead.
So básicamente lo quieren mandar para atrás a otro grupo para que vuelva a oír su caso, porque como todos casos son muy individuales. So básicamente lo quieren mandar para que lo aprueban con lo que tenga una como progresión de probation de 30 a 60 días, para que lo junte con alguien que tenga un master license. Como Víctor.
Any other comments, Mr. Rivera, or Mr. Serrano, did you have a comment?
So basically, he wants to also clarify that he had a journeyman license. I think that was clear by listening to the earlier prosecutor of Jessica, but he just wants to emphasize that he had a journeyman license, and that's what he's fighting for, and not necessarily an apprentice license.
All right, commissioners, any other questions or comments?
And Mr. Chairman, this is Brad Bowman, General Counsel. Just to clarify, I believe what's in front of the commission is an application for an apprentice license, apprentice electrician license.
Right. Are you aware of that, Mr. Rivera? Did you hear Mr. Bowman?
He was coming in very low, but I didn't hear that.
Say again, Mr. Bowman?
And I apologize. This is Brad Bowman, General Counsel. I was just trying to clarify that I believe the application that Mr. Soriano submitted was for an apprentice electrician license. So that's what's in front of the department, the commission here
So
today.
básicamente está diciendo que la aplicación que usted sometió era para un apprentice license, no para journey.
Sí, pero yo hice eso porque yo solo quería prepararme. Como no tenía, me detuvieron mi licencia de electricista, pues yo quería tener algo, pero yo me equivoqué en hacer esa aplicación, ¿verdad? No debe haberla hecho, pero en realidad yo tengo la licencia.
Yeah, though he did submit the apprentice application, he said that he wanted to start with something when submitting the application. He said he submitted it by error. What he really meant to submit was a journeyman license, but he understands his error that he submitted an apprentice license.
So does he want to continue to submit it as an apprentice? Is that the
So,
request?
quiere seguir adelante con el apprentice o con el journeyman, porque si es journeyman va a tener que tener otra junta.
Sí, pues es la que ellos me suspendieron.
Yeah, he wants to proceed with the journeyman because that was a license that was suspended because of the accusation.
Okay, so Mr. Bowman, how do we want to proceed with that?
Well, this is Brad Bowman again. The only thing that we can act on here today is the application that's in front of us, which
Right.
is the apprentice application and what was heard in SOA and what's in the case before us today. So that's what you'd be acting on today, commissioners.
So el caso que
If he
tiene
wanted to apply for a journeyman license, he could certainly do that and go through that process, but he'd have to submit an application,
Right.
meet those requirements currently, and go through that process as well. So that'd be a separate process. And any staff that needs to correct anything I'm saying, please chime in on that. But that's my understanding. You have to go through a separate application process.
So-
Rivera, go ahead and explain it to Mr. Serrano. Do you understand what Mr. Bowman said?
Yes, I do. So
Okay.
básicamente el caso enfrente de ellos es para lo que usted sometió que fue apprentice. Ese es el caso que tienen enfrente de ellos y es lo que van a decidir. Si usted quiere someter otra aplicación para journeyman, lo tiene que meter otra aplicación con todos los requisitos y va a tener que tener frente de otro jurado otra vez. So se va a alargar la cosa. So sigue adelante con apprentice o cambia para journeyman y usted lo puede someter, pero se va a tomar la aplicación, el tiempo y luego enfrentarse otra vez enfrente de la gente para que lo oigan en ese tiempo.
Chairman, if I can maybe help with this.
Yeah, speak up, Ms. Hurtado. Speak up a little bit.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, better.
Okay, if Mr. Soriano does submit a journeyman application and the commission wants to send this case back to enforcement, we can work out, assuming we can work out an agreement, it could encompass both of those licenses.
Okay, good information. Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Okay, commissioners.
So let me ask, on a motion, do we need to amend the ALJ?
If you want to refer it back,
Refer it back.
I mean, what do you want to do?
Yeah, I want to refer it back to enforcement if he wants to apply for the journeyman. To work it together.
So usted quiere aplicar por el journeyman?
Just what Jessica recommended, I think, is referring it back to remanding the case back to enforcement to try to work out an agreement. And if it's a 60-day timeline that you want,
Porque no puedo agarrar la
that and the understanding that is
puedo hacer.
Hang on, Mr. Serrano, Rivera, hang on a second. I want you to hear what Mr. Bowman is explaining to you so that we can be clear. Go ahead.
with the understanding that that if there's not an agreement reached, that the case would then come back to the commission at a future meeting, so you can still decide the case if you need to.
Okay, so just give me a second. Mr. Rivera, do you understand what Mr. Bowman said?
I believe I understood that he could submit it for a journeyman application. If it's not accepted, he could come back and have another hearing on the apprentice. Is that what I understood?
Not correct. No.
Okay.
What he was just saying is that we can refer this back to enforcement.
Correct.
Work out details and then if he wants to change his application from to journeyman, right? Then he can do that back when we refer it back to them. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, why don't you explain that to Mr. Soriano, please?
So básicamente usted puede meter su
Can we do
aplicación para Journeyman y entonces mete su papileje y entonces va a tener otra audiencia para que vuelva a oír lo que usted tiene que decir en ese con
Ok,
Journeyman.
pero es para la que
Es para la Journeyman.
pero es la que ellos me suspendieron, ¿verdad? Es la licencia que
Ajá.
ellos me
He wants to know that if he reapplies for the journeyman license, is it going to be for the journeyman license that he had previously? I just don't know what different levels they are, so I'm just trying to
Let
translate
me
what I'm
stop you
understanding.
there. Let me stop you there. Just a second, because it's not in his hands, it's in ours, but I want to make sure he understands what we're saying. Okay, so it's in our hands as a commission. We'll work that, he can work that through if that's the path we go down, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so stand by for a second. I got the executive director. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Francis, Executive Director with TDLR. Two things I'd like to address. Dr. Weston, if you want to make that motion, I think you can clearly say remand it back to the staff to review. You can put the number of days on there, and you can even add on there, and if there are other applications filed, those could be considered within that moment. In regard to the question that Mr. Soriano just asked, there's only one journeyman license.
Okay.
Unless he was a signed journeyman, but I don't think he is. I think he's a traditional, journeyman, electrician journeyman. So there's only one journeyman license, and that would be the ones considered. It would have the same privileges except for what's restricted in the review, if that review is granted. The other thing to keep in mind is that
Just give me a second. I want to make sure he understands that. I know we keep forgetting that we got to do a little translation. Mr. Eric, would you catch up a little bit, Mr. Serrano, please?
So básicamente dice que cuando usted aplica algo, están en las manos de ellos. Están en las manos de ellos para decidir qué condiciones va a tener la licencia que usted le dé. Usted va a aplicar para Journeyman. Ellos si lo aceptan, ellos deciden, porque están en las manos de ellos, las condiciones que tiene que usted seguir.
Pero lo mismo con la práctica.
Le va a hacer lo mismo,
Okay.
pero están en las manos de ellos. Okay.
Okay, hang on, Mr. Rivera. I got you. I know you're finished. Go ahead, Mr. Prentice.
And the last thing I'll say is, if the commission goes this way, Mr. Soriano needs to understand it's his job to find a master electrician that will be the supervisor. And then our staff will evaluate that relationship and determine that it's suitable. We may have to reconfigure it because of the union angle, but at the end of the day, it's his job to do the application, times of the essence, as well as to identify a list or one or two master electricians that will stand in his staff and on his behalf.
All right, Mr. Rivera, go ahead. That's a
So
critical point,
básicamente
Mr.
es su
Serrano.
responsabilidad de someter la aplicación y para tomarlo en consideración es su responsabilidad de buscar y encontrar un mastermind para que usted trabaje abajo de esa persona si le aceptan la aplicación. So, ellos van a querer 1 o 2 referencias de mastermind, electricistas, que usted puede trabajar abajo si le aceptan su aplicación de journeyman.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments?
Yeah, I've been very quiet because I wanted to hear what was going on first. I have a hard time understanding the case, how he went to prison for 2 years, but he's saying he didn't do anything wrong. That's confusing to me, number one. Number two, if we were going to refer it back to or remand it back to Ms. Furtado, I would still maintain a 30-day, and I would also make sure we tie in that whoever the master electrician is that's going to be supervising Mr. Soriano, if he steps out of line, that master electrician is going to also be reprimanded, to be very, very clear.
So si básicamente, si le aceptan la journeyman y está usted abajo de una master electrician, que si usted se sale afuera de línea, también el master electrician va a ser responsable y también va a sufrir consecuencias.
Okay. Mr. Francis, you have one more comment?
Yes, Brian Francis, Executive Director with TDLR. Dr. Callis, that is one of the hooks and one of the main parts of the agreements that we enter into. It makes sure that that supervising electrician knows the responsibilities and also takes the risk of those responsibilities being involved in it. So that is built and baked into the process, sir.
The other
Okay.
thing I want to be very clear too, Mr. Francis, is that I have a hard time with exactly what Ms. Hurtado said, is that whenever you start saying commercial and non-occupied, I'm telling you that from being around commercial job sites when they were building my business, there was kids at my job site. I'm just telling you that there's got to be a lot of restrictions on this, especially because of indecency with a child. That's a serious offense.
Okay, Mr. Rivera, go ahead and communicate that, please, to Mr. Serrano, and then I'll check with the commissioners. Go ahead. Mr. Rivera, can you hear me?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were speaking with me.
Okay, did you hear Dr. Callis' comment?
Yes, I heard it that about being fully responsible. That, well, he was talking about that there's children and the job site, regardless if it's commercial or not. That, and I agree with him. And there going to have to be some strict restrictions, and this reissuing of the license if it's issued.
Right. I'd like for you to communicate that to Mr. Serrano, please.
So se dice que básicamente que
Ahí.
va a tener restricciones la licencia,
Just give me
pero
a
va a
thumbs
tener que tener muchas más restricciones
Tengo
porque en cualquier trabajo que usted tenga, comercial o edificio abandonado, siempre hay niños, siempre hay público, y con la sentencia que le habían dado, entonces la cosa que tiene que estar retirada de todo eso. So, va a tener que tener, el señor está recomendando que tenga más restricciones que solamente decir que no puede, solamente puede trabajar en edificios comerciales. Es lo que está sugiriendo él.
Okay, any other comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion to remand it back to enforcement, with a 30-day, instead of the 60-day. For them to get a master electrician to sign up and supervise, and however that was written out.
Okay. And also, Ms. This is Brad Bowman, the conditions that Director Francis had
Yes.
indicated as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Especially with the union provision, okay? Is there a second to that motion? Okay, Commissioner Butler, okay. Mr. Rivera, I would like to explain the motion that was made to Mr. Serrano, please.
Okay, so usted va a tener que aplicar otra vez por adjournment dentro de 30 días y va a tener que encontrar un master electrician para que lo someta también, para que para que ellos lo tomen en cuenta, hagan su investigación y escogen uno por usted. Yo le recomiendo que someta 2 o 3 diferentes master electricians.
Okay.
Eso
So we
es
got a second from Commissioner Butler, got a motion, Dr. Wessons. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear, Dr. Callis, what was was that an aye?
Opposed.
Okay, opposed. So let's do a roll call vote. Tamara?
Thank you, sir. Vice Chairman Butler,
Aye.
Dr. Callis,
No.
Dr. Wesson,
Aye.
Chairman Figueroa,
Aye.
your motion passes.
Nice push. All right. Mr. Rivera, explain to Mr. Serrano that we're gonna have staff follow up with him with the details of what just happened and what just transpired, okay?
Okay.
Appreciate you being there for him. Thank you for your patience with us. Thank you for your translation. And we'll follow up with you, okay?
Thank you so much.
Okay, item number 2, Jessica, I guess you're still on, and Ms. Harding is Ms. Harding here? Cam, you're on mute.
No, sir.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Francis, Executive Director of TDLR. Tamla, is it
Yes,
correct to
sir.
say that there are no more witnesses that will be coming on?
That is correct.
Okay.
All right, I just like the sound of my voice, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Why you want to cut me off?
I'm sorry.
I just think it sounds melody.
The dulcet tones are amazing.
I think Brian is good. All right, so Jessica, go ahead.
Thank you. Jessica Hurtado, Enforcement Division. I request that you modify the PFD, deny Sonny Harding's incident management tow operator renewal application, and revoke that license. In 2007, respondent pled guilty to and was placed on deferred adjudication for felony possession of cocaine. Then in 2012, Mr. Harding obtained his IM tow operator license from the department. Respondent renewed his license without issue until he was again arrested for possession of cocaine. On December 15, 2018, respondent was called to the scene of an arrest in order to tow the suspect's vehicle. When Mr. Harding arrived at the scene, a police officer observed Mr. Harding and became concerned that he was displaying signs of intoxication. The officer observed that respondent appeared wiry and extremely alert and was overly excited. The officer also observed that Mr. Harding's eyes were dilated and he was, quote, speaking loudly at a fast rate of speed. The officer asked to search respondent and after obtaining his consent, found that Mr. Harding was in possession of a clear baggie containing cocaine. Respondent also had in his possession a rolled up dollar bill with a white powdery substance on it. As a result, respondent was arrested and he pled guilty to possessing a controlled substance, cocaine. On January 22nd, 2019, respondent received 2 years deferred adjudication community supervision. On February 4, 2020, the respondent applied to renew his tow operator license and he answered no to the criminal history questionnaire. The ALJ found that the evidence found on Mr. Harding was consistent with his having consumed cocaine shortly before or while performing his duties as a tow truck operator. The ALJ found that the respondent's actions created a grave risk to the safety of other people and property. And the ALJ also found that respondent would be afforded an opportunity to repeat the same type of conduct were he to remain licensed as a tow truck operator. Mr. Harding was 38 years old at the time of the offense, which occurred approximately 2.5 years ago. In examining the factors in section 53.023, the ALJ found that Mr. Harding's age at the time of the offense and the recency of the offense both weighed against the respondent. However, the ALJ found that several factors weighed in favor of respondent. His successful completion of his 2 years of community supervision, his completion of drug rehabilitation classes, and his attendance at AA meetings. Based on the respondent's testimony, the ALJ found that the department failed to show that Mr. Harding knowingly gave a false answer on his renewal application, but concluded that respondent's criminal history makes him unfit to hold a tow operator license, and he lacks the honesty, trustworthiness, and integrity to hold the license at this time. I agree with this finding, and I ask that you adopt it as part of the PFD. However, the ALJ goes on to recommend that you consider probating any revocation imposed on Mr. Harding and including conditions that will verify his continued sobriety, including weekly drug testing. Because I have concerns about the feasibility of any conditions imposed on respondent, I filed exceptions to the PFD to address that portion of the ALJ's recommendation. Mr. Harding is not currently on community supervision, and the department has no way of monitoring whether he continues to attend AA meetings or obtain legitimate drug testing. And for these reasons, I ask that you reject that portion of the PFD that recommends a probated revocation consistent with the exceptions filed by the department. I ask that you deny the renewal application and revoke the respondent's license, and I am available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Any questions for Jessica? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I recommend adopting the PFD.
I'll second that.
With Jessica, make sure you, you recommend Dr. Callis with the addition of the drug testing, without the addition of drug testing?
No, I was gonna recommend the PFD and then add some language to it, but I didn't know if I could recommend the PFD, then ask Ms. Hurtado to add some stuff to it with some if we're gonna accept the PFD, but there has to be some other things attached. So I guess it's the time for me to start talking about something. Ms. Hurtado, and I wish I wish Mr. Hart was on the phone or was on here. I could be talking to him as well. As a physician and as someone that sees and have seen 9 or 10 or 12 people that have been addicts, and I do agree that becoming clean, I'm proud of this gentleman. But the problem that I have with this, Ms. Hurtado, is to let you know that people that become clean with severe addiction, including drugs, alcohol, or anything that is very, very addictive in nature, just to have an oversight, i.e., a randomized drug test, is very, very vital to maintain their sobriety. With that being said, I don't think TDLR should be responsible to be the police. I don't think we should be the drug, testing organization. What we do is that we make sure that all licensees are protecting Texans. And so, what I'm recommending, Ms. Hurtado, is that accepting or asking for acceptance of the PFD, but I would like to also make sure that Mr. Harding then financially supports randomized drug testing where he can submit that to TDLR if that's a possibility.
Okay, let me check with council. Council, how do you want to phrase that?
Well, this is Brad Bowman. It sounded like that was maybe a question for the prosecutor, so you may want to hear from enforcement in terms of, the feasibility of that
Yes, sir.
kind of arrangement. But it sounds like the way Dr. Callis is heading is a probated revocation along the lines of what the ALJ was recommending, and maybe exploring some kind of option for drug testing.
Right, which would recommend it back to enforcement to handle that?
Well, I suppose that's an option.
Well, I don't think we're gonna discuss variations of drug testing. And we have the expertise here to be able to do that.
It might be difficult to try
I
to
think it would be
resolve
very
that.
difficult to do that. So, Mr. Todd, I'll let you comment on Dr. Callis's comment, and then we'll make sure we'll get this thing in line. You have any comments on that?
Yes, thank you, commissioners. My comment would be that we have one staff person in enforcement who is tasked with monitoring orders, and that's typically monitoring payments received. She is not experienced in collecting, drug tests results and that sort of thing. So if that's what the commission is going to do, we're going to have to dedicate our staff time to monitoring that and keeping up with it, because we can't somebody has to track it, basically, is what I'm saying.
Ms. Hurtado, that's why I asked you from an enforcement side. It wasn't a Brad question, it was you from enforcement, because what I don't want to do is put the burden on us or the liability on us. But on the other hand, that in order to be sober, the best way of treating that is to have randomized drug testing. And so, Chair, I don't know how we're going to get there because I don't want to put the burden on, but I do have a problem where we just go ahead and, I don't know how to really put anything out there if we can't really monitor anything, sir.
Well, that's why it was a bad question, since we'd have to figure out if you want to do that. I'm not sure we're capable of doing it in this commission meeting. If that's your motion, now the majority of the commissioners have to agree with you. I mean, they have other opinions on that, but we'd have to probably reprimand that back to enforcement in some way, if that's to be the case, because you can't ask somebody to do something they're not equipped to do, right? And so.
Okay, I'll change my motion, sir. I would like to reprimand it back to Ms. Hurtado to look at any and all options in order to have some type of program that the Mr. Harding would then have to fiscally support and pay for and come up with a solution, because I do not feel comfortable doing anything more until we have some type of solution.
Okay, all right, there's a motion, there's a second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have one thing to add. There's a technical correction to conclusion of law number 7, correcting a legal citation. So we just suggested that be part of the motion.
Is that a friendly amendment to your motion?
Yes, sir. It sure is. Yes.
Good. Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion?
Well, just a quick question on it. Is this something that if we revoke and deny, and then he's got a year to reapply, and he has to provide proof that he had drug testing within that year to come back and apply, or does that not come into play anywhere?
Yeah,
Let enforcement come back with.
I think enforcement's gonna come back with it. Mr. Francis.
Dr. Weston, just to answer your question generally, so if it was denied today and he applied a year later, that may be something that would accrue to his benefit, but we wouldn't put that in the order saying we're denying you and you must do these things. But
Okay,
it could be something that could benefit him
Okay.
if he did come
Alright.
back.
Kind of like time served
Yes, sir.
scenario.
or like references or something that he
Right,
wants to
exactly.
put in on the deal. I got you.
Okay, so commissioners, I'd like for you guys to make sure there's a clarity in what Dr. Callis's motion is. Is there any questions about it? Okay, so I got a motion, got a second. I'm gonna take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Jessica, you're getting paid overtime. Item 3, Mr. Goods. Go ahead. You're on mute, Jessica.
Sorry about that. Jessica Hurtado, Enforcement Division. I ask that you accept the PFD as written and deny Toriano Adero Goods' apprentice electrician license. In September 1998, the applicant was convicted of 2 misdemeanor offenses, assault and failure to identify to a peace officer. In May 2007, the department issued Mr. Goods an apprentice electrician license. Then, in October 2007, he was convicted of misdemeanor theft and sentenced to 30 days in jail. In 2008, the applicant submitted a late renewal application and the department renewed his license. In March 2010, Mr. Goods was convicted of 3 offenses: failure to identify, criminal mischief for damaging a car window, and forgery, a felony offense. He was sentenced to 6 months in prison. The following year, in May 2011, the applicant was convicted of a felony theft for stealing 2 horse saddles and sentenced to 2 years in prison. However, the court suspended that sentence and placed him on 5 years community supervision. Despite his criminal history, the department took a chance on Mr. Goods and renewed his license in 2012. Mr. Goods continued to renew his license through 2016. In October 2016, the applicant was convicted of felony theft after stealing a fishing rod and other items from a store. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison, but that sentence was suspended and he was placed on 5 years community supervision. Then in May 2017, Mr. Goods' license expired and could no longer be renewed. In October 2018, his community supervision was revoked and he was sent to prison for 15 months. In April 2019, he was again convicted of felony theft after stealing motor oil and other items from a store. And he was sentenced to 12 months in prison and he was released on December 6, 2019. After his release, the applicant filed a new apprentice electrician license application and the department sought to deny that application. The ALJ noted that Mr. Goods has been convicted of numerous guideline crimes, including crimes involving fraud or deceptive trade practices, crimes against property, and crimes against the person. The ALJ's analysis of the Chapter 53 factors recognized that the applicant's crimes have spanned several decades across his adult lifetime. He was 43 years old at the time of his last conviction. Additionally, less than 3 years have passed since his last conviction, insufficient time for Mr. Goods to establish a record of good conduct. Finally, the ALJ notes that the applicant provided no evidence of any rehabilitative efforts and did not offer any letters of recommendation from others who might vouch for his fitness to hold a license. Therefore, the ALJ concludes that the license application should be denied at this time. I ask that you adopt the PFD as written, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jessica. Any questions from Jessica? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adopt the PFD.
Your second. Any technical training?
Yes, sir.
Good. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 4, Fisher. Go ahead, Jessica.
Jessica Hurtado, Enforcement Division. I ask that you adopt the PFD as written and revoke Brian Fisher's athletic trainer license. Mr. Fisher obtained his license in July 2018. Then in September 2019, respondent approached a hotel employee under the guise of asking her for soap. In fact, Mr. Fisher had exposed himself, and she observed that he was pleasuring himself while speaking to her. When respondent left, the victim was able to obtain a photograph of him on her cell phone, along with his vehicle's license plate number. She then contacted the police to report the incident. According to Mr. Fisher, he went to the hotel to look for an Apple Watch that he had lost there on a previous occasion. Mr. Fisher testified that he approached the hotel employee because she was wearing an Apple Watch that he thought belonged to him. In February 2020, Mr. Fisher pled guilty to indecent exposure and was placed on deferred adjudication for 6 months. Although Mr. Fisher denied the offense occurred, he testified that he believed it was better to plead guilty than risk taking the case to trial. In May 2020, respondent renewed his license and answered no to the criminal history question. Mr. Fisher testified at the hearing that his attorney advised him he did not need to disclose the offense because he had not yet been convicted. Crimes involving sexual misconduct are directly related to the licensed occupation of athletic trainers, who have physical interactions with their clients, including children, often behind closed doors. Licensees often interact with clients over extended periods of time and can develop a relationship of trust or friendship. For these reasons, clients are vulnerable to being exploited by a licensee who would have the opportunity to engage in similar sexual misconduct in the future. The ALJ found that respondent's offense was serious in nature and was not a victimless crime. While Mr. Fisher denied the offense occurred, the ALJ found that his testimony lacked detail concerning the event and raised more questions than it answered. The respondent was 25 years old at the time, and the offense cannot be discounted as merely youthful indiscretion. While Mr. Fisher submitted several letters of recommendation to support his fitness for licensure, none of those letters indicated an awareness of his offense or spoke to any rehabilitative efforts on his part. After weighing the Chapter 53 factors, the ALJ concludes that more time is needed for a respondent to establish a record of good conduct, and Mr. Fisher is not currently fit to be licensed as an athletic trainer. I ask that you adopt the PFD as written, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Jessica? Okay.
I make a motion to adopt the ALJ as written.
Okay. Second,
I'll second that motion.
all in favor, say aye.
Did Dr. Weston say adopt the ALJ or the PFD?
PFD, I'm sorry.
He did say, I took assumption that I took that assumption. So
I just wanted for clarification for the record, sir. That's all I'm
Thank
saying.
you, thank you.
Good catch. So the motion to adopt PFD, second by Commissioner Butler. Any further discussion? No technical changes?
No, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? Motion carries.
Did
Yeah.
Commissioner Wesson try to adopt the judge?
Yeah, he did.
Well, it was an easy time.
All right, item number 5, Mies. Jessica, go ahead.
Thank you. Jessica Hurtado, Enforcement Division. I ask that you adopt the PFD as written and deny Benjamin Meese's application for an apprentice electrician license. In 2006, respondent pled guilty to 2 counts of forgery and was placed on deferred adjudication supervision for a period of 4 years. In 2008, he was convicted of unauthorized use of a vehicle, a felony, and sentenced to 2 years in prison. And that sentence was suspended and he was placed on community supervision for 2 years. In 2009, his supervision was revoked and Mr. Meese was sentenced to 1 year in prison. In March 2011, respondent was convicted of theft and again placed on community supervision for 1 year. That supervision was revoked in October 2011 after Mr. Meese was convicted of a second theft charge, and he was sentenced to 100 days in jail. In 2012, respondent was convicted of engaging in organized criminal activity, a felony, and sentenced to 5 years in prison. After he was released, Mr. Meese was convicted in 2016 of failing to identify and criminal trespass and sentenced to 45 days in jail. Then in January 2017, respondent was convicted of 2 additional felony theft offenses and sentenced to 6 years in prison. In August 2018, he was convicted of a 3rd felony theft offense and sentenced to 12 months in prison. Mr. Meese was released from prison in December 2019. On the criminal history questionnaire, Mr. Meese submitted to the department. He states that his crimes are committed in furtherance of his drug addiction. And he testified at the hearing that he pursued drug treatment while in prison in 2016 and that he has been employed since his release working for an electrical company. He also provided letters of recommendation, including a letter from his current employer. In analyzing the Chapter 53 factors, the ALJ noticed that Mr. Meese's extensive criminal history began when he was 19 years old, and he was 31 years old at the time of his most recent offense. His crimes include 7 felonies, and he will remain on parole until June 2022. The ALJ recognizes Mr. Meese's efforts to rehabilitate himself, maintain his sobriety, and support his dependents by obtaining employment since his release from prison. However, because of his extensive criminal history, because less than 3 years have passed since his last offense, the ALJ concludes that not enough time has passed for the applicant to establish a record of good conduct. Therefore, the ALJ recommends that you deny Mr. Meese's license application. I ask that you adopt the PFD as written, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotter. Any questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we adopt the PFD as written.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Jessica, thank you. Outstanding job. Appreciate your efforts and what you're doing. It doesn't go unnoticed. Appreciate that. All right.
Thank you.
Item 6, Mr. Brown and Mr. Thielen. Are you there? There you are, Mr. Thielen. Good to see you, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. Trevor Thielen with Enforcement. Y'all can hear me okay, right?
Gotcha.
I'm the prosecutor with the enforcement who worked on this case. We recommend you accept the administrative law judge's PFD, deny Joe Nathan Brown Jr.'s apprentice electrician license application. The applicant first applied for a license in 2007. The department decided to give him the license despite a felony conviction for forgery in 1995, a theft by check conviction in 1997, and a failure to identify conviction in 2000. The applicant worked under an apprentice electrician license for about 5.5 years. But during that period, he was convicted of aggravated assault causing serious bodily injury in April 2011. According to the probable cause affidavit, this felony occurred because of an argument the applicant had with a coworker at a construction site. The applicant punched the victim in the face twice, which caused the victim to fall over and cut his forehead during the fall. And when the victim was on the ground, the applicant kicked him in the face with steel-toed boots multiple times. The court convicted the applicant of the offense and sentenced him to a 10-year probation. In December 2011, 7 months into that probation, the applicant and another man were accused of aggravated sexual assault by the other man's girlfriend. The applicant pled guilty to aggravated sexual assault in November 2012. He received a prison sentence then for the sex offense, and his probation for the felony assault was revoked, which also sent him to prison and keeps him on parole right now. Upon arrival in prison, his license was revoked by operation of law. He was released from prison in 2018, and he will be on parole until March 2022. Last year, the applicant filed a new application for an apprentice electrician license. The ALJ heard from the applicant, his wife, his stepfather, his second cousin, and one of his friends, who all supported him getting licensed again. But despite this, the ALJ determined the applicant has not established a long enough track record of success considering his significant criminal history, him being 35 years old at the time of his latest offenses, and his, quote, moderate sex offender risk level classification. The ALJ also considered whether the applicant was a good candidate for a restricted license. The ALJ noted that the normal legislative policy of leaning in favor of licensure does not apply in the applicant's case because that policy only applies when a person has fully discharged their sentence and the applicant is still on parole. The ALJ went on to note that the applicant did not present any evidence during the hearing regarding the feasibility of a restricted license and that there was no basis for issuing one. He did not present evidence showing he has a willing or able supervisor if he becomes licensed. He didn't present evidence about who he might work for and whether that employment would be compatible with our usual restrictions. And he did not present any evidence showing what, if any, rehabilitation efforts he is taking now or has taken in the past that would alleviate concerns about his serious, violent, and sexual offenses. The ALJ recommends you simply deny the application, and the department urges you to accept the PFD as written. While we cannot promise the applicant anything, we think the applicant would be in a better position if he applies again after successfully completing his parole next year. Are there any questions I can answer?
Any questions? Commissioners, I know there's a technical correction on this one, so just FYI, as we go through forward. Any questions or comments for Mr. Thielen? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I would like to accept the PFD and changing a finding of facts in order to what you just said, a correction.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. It is 10:12 right now. I'm gonna give us a 5-minute break, just to turn calls, do everything we gotta do. We'll return here back at, let's just say, 10:20. All right, 10:20.
Thank you.
Chairman, I don't think we've got Tamala yet.
Oh, wait on Tam. And I'm gonna call the meeting back to order. As we go through these cases, as we walk through this, it's important, imperative that each one is unique and the enforcers do an amazing job, our prosecutors do an amazing job walking through there's a team, and I want us to recognize that team because, they are the cogs behind the machine. And so, Mr. Francis, I'm gonna give you 1 minute, Mr. Francis. No pontification, Mr. Francis. 1
Yes,
minute.
sir. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. Brian Francis, Executive Director of TDLR. So Commissioners, as you know, when we bring the cases to you, that's just the tip of the process. There's been a lot of work that's been done. And these cases today are very difficult when you're dealing with the criminal conviction aspect of it, the sex offender cases and the theft cases and such. I just wanted to commend Jessica Hurtado, and I wanted to commend Trevor Thielen, but also let you know that something that Christina Kaiser put in place years ago was creating a partnership. There's a team. So Jessica works with legal assistant Vicky Butler, and together they get the work done. Trevor works with Kirsten Abernathy, and together they get the work done. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, but also kind of let you see behind the curtain, the work that's being done. So kudos, Christina, to your team, but Jessica and Vicky, Trevor and Kirsten, thank y'all so much for what all of you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, enforcement. Thank you for what you do, prosecutors. Okay, rules. Go to item I. Mr. Burkholder, are you there? Oh, here. All right. I think you're up first.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Derek Burkhalter. I'm an Assistant General Counsel for TDLR. This agenda item is a proposed amendment to our Chapter 60 rules at Section 60.22 to enable the Executive Director to issue emergency licenses to license holders whose licenses expire during a state of disaster declared by the Governor. During the current disaster declaration resulting from the COVID pandemic, the Department experienced delays in its operations, including its processing of license renewals. Delays in license renewal could prevent certain license holders from being able to work, and this may affect the provision of essential public health services or construction and repair services necessary for public health and safety. To minimize the impacts of these delays, the Commission has adopted rules on an emergency basis to allow the Executive Director to issue emergency licenses to ensure license holders do not experience a lapse in licensure through no fault of their own. The most recent emergency rule was adopted on May 6th, became effective May 22nd, and is set to expire September 18th. The text of the proposed rule before you today is identical to the text of the current emergency rule, and this ensures that the policies and procedures the Department has already developed can remain in place as needed for the current disaster and will be available for any future disaster. The proposed rule is published in the June 4th issue of the Texas Register, and the public comment period ended July 5th. The Department received 6 public comments. 2 comments were in support of the rule, 2 comments were outside the scope of the rule, and 2 comments expressed the mistaken belief that the rule would allow emergency licenses to be issued to unlicensed individuals, which is not the case because the rule would only allow emergency licenses to be issued to current license holders. In conclusion, the Department recommends adoption of the proposed rule as published with an effective date of September 1st, 2021, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adopt the rules as written.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor, say aye.
Chairman, I had a question real quick for Mr. Burkhalter. Since I've been involved with the coronavirus task force, and I know that the governor is now starting to rescind some new executive orders, including maybe suspension of some elective type cases. And I mean, we're getting ready to go through it bad again. Can we just maintain this? I know you said till September 21st, but if he orders something else, can we extend that for Mr. Francis if it gets extended without having to come back to a meeting? That's all I'm asking.
Yes, the current rule, if it's adopted, would go into place September 1st, and it would give us the same powers as the current emergency rule in place. So it would allow us to extend that same licensing behavior and activity so that our licensees don't experience a lapse in licensure.
Thank you, sir, because that's all I'm trying to, I just want to be clarification and let everyone hear that, because I think that people, our licensees need to know we're doing everything we can safely to maintain them having their licenses without putting our whole staff at jeopardy during this god-awful pandemic. And so with that, Chairman, I will 100% support it, and thank you for allowing me to ask my question.
You bet, Dr. Callis. Okay, let me go back. We got a motion, got a second. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, item J, Mr. Buckhalter.
Thank you. Again, my name is Derek Burkhalter, Assistant General Counsel at TDLR. So this agenda item is a package of proposed amendments to the motorcycle safety rules at Chapter 98 of the Administrative Code. The Motorcycle and ATV Operator Safety Program transferred from DPS on September 1st, 2020, and the current rules became effective on that date, along with the newly created Motorcycle Safety Advisory Board. The advisory board has held 5 public meetings since its creation, and this is the first rule recommendation to the commission from that board. I'll briefly provide a summary of the more substantive changes. First, a new eligibility requirement for the motorcycle instructor license is added to require applicants to not have been convicted of a DWI offense within the previous 7 years. Next, a new alternative eligibility requirement is created for instructor license applicants coming from out of state, so that if an applicant has been licensed or certified to teach a TDLR approved course or its equivalent for at least a year and has taught the course at least 6 times, then the applicant would not be required to take an instructor preparation course administered by the Texas A&M Engineering Extension Service. Next, a new provision applicable to motorcycle schools would require every range, which is the area of a training site where on-cycle training is conducted, to be surrounded by a paved runoff area free of surface hazards and obstacles of at least 20 feet from the perimeter of the range. Next, another provision would restrict the personnel allowed on the range to only include instructors, students, interpreters, and range assistants who must meet certain qualifications and may provide only non-instructional support. Next, new student admission requirements are added to require motorcycle schools to inform prospective students in writing of the school's retesting policies, when a student must be removed from the course due to dangerous riding performance, and the department's contact information for filing complaints. And finally, the curriculum standards are updated to improve clarity and enforceability. Now, the proposed rules were published in the Texas Register on May 28th, and the public comment period closed June 28th. The department received 10 comments, which were very helpful and resulted in the advisory board recommending multiple changes to the published rule language. And those changes are at section 98.10, a change to clarify the definition of entry-level courses. At section 98.23, to remove the grandfather clause for the 7-year DWI prohibition. At section 98.70, to correct cross references. At section 98.104, to clarify the required disclosures to prospective students. And at section 98.108, to clarify when protective gear must be worn. The advisory board and the department recommend adoption of these proposed rules with the recommended changes to the published text as I just listed, and with an effective date of September 1st, 2021. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions? Oh, great hearing those comments. Added a lot. 10 great comments, and that's good to hear. The system's working. It's good to hear. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item K, Pello.
Good morning, Commissioners. Wendy Pello, Senior Assistant General Counsel. Agenda item K is an emergency rulemaking adoption related to the speech language pathology speech language pathologist and audiologist program, and the rules under 16 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 111. The specific rules that are being amended and repealed are listed on your agenda and item on your agenda under item K. This is an emergency rulemaking that's necessary to ensure that services to clients and supervision of certain licensees may continue to be provided through telehealth as was allowed under the waivers that were granted by the governor during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the emergency rules also reflect the change in the statutory authority regarding telehealth as changed by Senate Bill 40. You do have the details about the emergency rules in your materials, but there's a few items I do want to highlight. On March 13th, 2020, the governor issued a disaster declaration related to the COVID-19 pandemic. In response, the department filed a telehealth waiver request for our health programs in order to remove any restrictions and to expand the provision of telehealth services and supervision of certain licensees through telehealth. For the speech language pathologist and audiologist program, these waivers allowed additional licensees to provide telehealth services, allowed for the expanded use of technologies, allowed for the expanded use of facilitators, allowed for direct and indirect supervision of certain licensees through telehealth, removed in-person supervision requirements, removed caps and restrictions on supervision through telehealth, and removed the in-person initial client contact requirement. The governor granted the waiver on April 8th, 2020, and the department posted notice and on our website and through emails notifying licensees of the public that the waivers had been granted, and the providers have been providing services to clients and supervising licensees under these waivers in accordance with these waivers since April 2020. The waivers are being rescinded. Request was filed July 20th and approved. And for this program, the telehealth waivers are being terminated effective September 1st, 2021. The department will propose telehealth rules on a permanent basis and propose those for adoption by the commission. Rules will implement Senate Bill 40, make other changes to the telehealth rules, but those will be done on a permanent basis with anticipated adoption by early 2022. But to prevent a gap in services before that date, the department is recommending that the commission adopt emergency rules to ensure that services to clients and supervision of certain licensees may continue to be provided through telehealth as was allowed under the waivers that were granted by the governor. Without the emergency rules to fill the gap, there will be a disruption of services that have been provided to clients under those waivers. The speech language pathologist and audiologist advisory board met last Friday, August 6th, to discuss the telehealth emergency rules. The advisory board recommended that the commission adopted the telehealth emergency rules, and the department is recommending that the commission adopt the telehealth emergency rules for the speech language pathologist and audiologist program under Chapter 111 as specified, the specific rules as specified in the agenda caption with an effective date of September 1st, 2021. And happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Pello. Any questions? All right, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries. Item L, Ms. Pello.
Again, Wendy Pello, Senior Assistant General Counsel. Under Agenda Item L,
Wendy, I'm sorry, can you speak up just a little bit or get close to the mics? I want the commissioners asking. Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Go.
Okay. This is an emergency rulemaking adoption for the hearing instrument fitters and dispensers program and emergency telehealth emergency rules under Chapter 112. And specifically Section 112.150. Again, this is an emergency rulemaking that's necessary to ensure that services to clients may continue to be provided through telehealth as was allowed under the waivers that were granted by the governor during the COVID-19 pandemic, and to reflect the statutory change in authority for telehealth as implemented by Senate Bill 40. Again, you've got the details about the emergency rules in your materials. These telehealth waivers were part of the telehealth waivers for all the health programs, For the hearing aids fitters and dispensers, it was removing restrictions and expanding the use of telehealth to provide services through telehealth. And these waivers allowed for the use of additional technologies to provide teleservices, allowed for expanded use of facilitators, and removed the in-person initial client contact requirement. Again, the waiver was approved April 8th, 2020. We provided notice to licensees and the public on April 9th, 2020, and providers have been providing services to clients in accordance with those waivers since that time. Again, the telehealth waivers are being rescinded, and for this program, the termination date is for those waivers is September 1st, 2021. Again, we'll be proposing telehealth rules for adoption by the Commission on a permanent basis and implementing Senate Bill 40 and other telehealth rule changes, and those permanent rules will be adopted anticipated early 2022. And again, to prevent a gap in services before that date, the department is proposing emergency rules to ensure that services to clients may continue to be provided through telehealth as was allowed under the waivers that were granted by the governor. And without those emergency rules, there will be a disruption in services that have been provided to clients, which will result in imminent peril to public health, safety, and welfare. The Hearing Instrument Fitters and Dispensers Advisory Board met last Friday, August 6th. The advisory board recommended that the commission adopt the telehealth emergency rules for this program, and the department is recommending that the commission adopt the telehealth emergency rules for this program, specifically the rule changes under 112.150 with an effective date of September 1st, 2021. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Commissioners?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, before we go on to item, we've gotten I want to commend the commission for getting responsive on these emergency orders. Not like building a plane and flying at the same time, but that's how we roll. So great job on that. All right, Mr. Jennings, where you at?
Right here, Chairman Figueroa. Thank you, Commissioners, Chairman. I'd like to ask your leave, Chairman, to combine items M and N on the agenda. I believe we can kill two birds with one stone.
I'm in favor of that. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Again, Doug Jennings, Assistant General Counsel for the department. As you will recall, this commission met in May to adopt some emergency rules aimed at delaying the effective date of a provision of the 2020 National Electrical Code that was causing some air conditioning systems to malfunction. Those emergency rules had a length of 120 days and are set to expire next month on September 16th. We're asking you to extend the effective date of these emergency rules by 60 days. That would extend the expiration date to mid-November. Just so you can know what we're doing, we're also pursuing a non-emergency or a regular permanent rulemaking in both programs, air conditioning and refrigeration, and the electricians program. Both advisory boards have met, have looked at the exact same rule text that you have before you today, and have recommended to publish those rules as written. We are awaiting comments on that permanent rulemaking. We have our timeline. I believe that we shouldn't have a gap in the effectiveness of this rule. Additionally, I know there were some questions and concerns last time about the safety aspects of these rules. We have not received any complaints, to my knowledge, or to those of our subject matter experts calling into question the safety of adopting these emergency rules. And so I would like to ask you for a vote to extend both sets of emergency rules for an additional 60 days. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Jennings, for putting those two together. Any questions? Once again, for your action time, it's quick reaction, of course. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second motion, Dr. Cowles, second, Mr. Weston. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's the quickest I've ever heard a lawyer talk, Jennings. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're well done. You weren't paid by the hour on that one, I can tell. That was quick. I like it. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Francis, Executive Director with TDLR. Commissioner Cowles, something you said earlier, the first set of rules that y'all have gone through, the ones that Ms. Pillow provided, as well as the ones provided by Mr. Burkhalter and Mr. Jennings, that's exactly what we're doing, is not just now reacting to it, but we're building the infrastructure so that the emergency rules are in place and it exists. This is just something we've learned through COVID, that we had the rules coming back and forth to you, but now it's building the infrastructure to where we can pivot off that during the next moment that things, go in a direction that we don't like them to go in. So we appreciate the commission's indulgence on this, but we've got some systems now in place. Thanks to you all for those votes. So thank you.
Great job. All right, Mr. Gladney. Nice background, Mr. Gladney. I like that. Can I trade places with you?
Okay, you can.
All right.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mark Gladney, Assistant General Counsel for the department. Agenda item O proposes a new rule and rule amendments for the driver education and safety program. Rule chapter 84, subchapters A, C, D, L, M, and N. This rule package accomplishes two purposes. First, the proposed rules complete the implementation of House Bill 105, which requires a specialized driving safety course to include methods of safely driving near an oversized or overweight vehicle. Second, the proposed rules also implement a transfer of rule text applicable to the required course content and minimum instruction requirements for driver training courses from Chapter 84 of our administrative rules to department-created program guides for easier use by DES licensees. Thus, program guides were created for courses and programs of instruction for the teen driver education, adult 6-hour driver education, driving safety, DDAP, and the specialized driving safety courses. And thus, this rulemaking is consistent with the governor's initiative and department policies to simplify and organize rules for state licensees. As a part of this rule package, the program guides that were created by the department become a part of Chapter 84 and are adopted in those rules by reference in accordance with the Secretary of State's administrative rules. The program rules and the program guides, or the proposed rules and the program guides, were published in the Texas Register on April 23rd and April 30th. The comment period ended on May 31st. We received no comments. The Driver Training and Traffic Safety Advisory Committee met on July 14th to discuss the proposed rule package. The committee recommended adoption of the proposed rules and the program guides as published. Staff recommends a motion to recommend adoption of this rulemaking package, including the program guides, with an effective date of September 1, 2021. And I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gladney. Any questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the rules as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Approve.
Aye.
Or say approve, one of the two. It's fine. Motion carries. All right. Mr. Gladney, thank you. Go back to your tree farm. It looks great back there.
Thank you very much.
We're gonna go to item P. Mary, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Outstanding, Mary. We're going to appointments. So you have the floor.
Good morning, Commission. Mary Winston, TDLR. This morning, we have one appointment and several reappointments for your consideration. For the first appointment, we're going to try to follow each other here with this. Thank you, Christine, for running this PowerPoint for me. For our appointment, we have for Registered Sanitarian Advisory Committee, Ms. Claire de Guzman of Tyler, Texas. For reappointments, we have first the Architectural Barriers Advisory Committee, Mr. John Ricard of Austin, Texas. Mr. Michael T. Olson of McGregor, Texas. Moving on to the Auctioneer Advisory Board. For reappointment, we have Mr. Rick Stroud of Bernie, Texas. Mark G. Schroeder of San Antonio, Texas. James Beasley of Arlington. Martin Pessink of Gladewater. Justin Adcock of Hammond, Louisiana. excuse me, and Mr. Douglas O. Mixon of Austin, Texas. Next, we have our Dietitians Advisory Board. For reappointment, we have Ms. Janet Suzanne Hall of Florence. Moving on to the Massage Therapy Advisory Board. For reappointment, we have Ms. Susan Sparks of Corpus Christi. Ms. Carol Willis of Round Rock. We now have appointments for the Motorcycle Safety Advisory Board. Mr. Roger A. Bowles of Waco. Michael Manser of Austin. Rowan J. Schick-Snyder of Atlanta, Texas. Jeffrey Alford of Austin. And finally, for Speech Language Pathologists and Audiologists Advisory Board, for reappointment, we have Ms. Sherry Sansibrian of Lubbock. And that completes all of the reappointments and appointments we have for your consideration this morning.
All right, any comments? Mary, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for what you're doing. Appreciate the immense amount of effort going background check and everything else. That means a lot. So these guys are our eyes and ears, and ladies are our eyes and ears out in the field. So thank you for what you do so much.
Thank you, Chairman.
You can't trump me, Brian. Don't. All right.
Brian Francis, Executive Director at TDLR. I want to thank you because I think a lot of folks don't realize that Mary's team does a whole lot of heavy lifting, but the time you spend in reviewing each of the applications with the staff and walking through it, even making those personal calls when you think it's appropriate, I think it means a lot. And I want the other commissioners to know that these aren't coming from the staff. The staff is bringing those to you, and you are bringing these forward, and you do thumbs up and thumbs down on our stuff. So thank you for the time that you spend with the staff. It means a lot.
Keep going. I'll give you some more time. Give you another 5 minutes. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the nominees to the advisory boards as presented by Ms. Winston.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Motion carries. Mary, thank you once again. Appreciate it. All right. Item Q. Now, this one I want to make sure that there are opportunities with us every meeting to be able to make impact beyond the normality of our day, which I don't think that word's ever been uttered in 2020 or 2021. But in the midst of that, right, this is important to all of us, and I think I want us to pay close attention to what we're fixing to throw out here. So, Mr. Francis, you have item Q.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Francis, Executive Director for TDLR. This has been an issue that's been in front of the commission for a while. And just simply put, it's the one that requires the commission, gives the commission no discretion on some of these older cases where folks have held licenses in the massage therapy industry. At your last meeting, Dr. Callis asked that we take a look at this and bring it back to the commission. Dr. Callis, we immediately got Brad and the Enforcement Division to start reviewing this. They have come up with some interesting options. I've not finalized those options yet. One of the things I'd love to do, though, with the chairman's indulgence, is to have a work group of commissioners, maybe 3 of the commissioners, to bounce some of these ideas off, because as you can imagine, this is a very nuanced process that we're going to undertake, and I'd love to have the feedback and input of some commissioners as we continue to navigate this. This is not something that we are taking lightly. This is a priority for the chairman. It's a priority for me as well, and obviously for those Texans that have been impacted by it. We are putting our best thinkers on it, and I'd like to add the commissioners to that category and that group of folks to help us sleuth through this.
Wonderful, wonderful. I've asked Dr. Wessons to run point on this because he just happens to be to my left, and I grabbed him by his neck and said, I want to do that. But this is in regards to trying to do what's right. There's what's legal, but there's also what's right, and there may be a conflict sometimes. And so we want to make sure that we address this and the humanity part of this. So I'm excited about that. Thank you. And you know what? This contradicts that narrative that is always out there that bureaucracy doesn't listen. Bureaucracy does listen, and we do pay attention to these things. So I'm excited. Whatever you can do to help from the chair, you let me know.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, any other comments? Good. All right, item R, Mr. Francis.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Francis, Executive Director of TDLR. We've got a few things we'd like to report on, so I'm going to hand it off to Christina Kaiser, to Mike Harris-Mendez, and David Gonzalez in that order.
Yeah, the guys that do the work.
The ones that do the work.
Okay, that's good, good. It's good to know the guys that do the work.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Christina Kaiser, Deputy Executive Director for Regulatory Services here at TDLR. It is with some sadness, but also with some joy that I announce to you today the retirement of Mr. Lee Parham, who is currently in the role of Deputy Division Director for Regulatory Program Management. Lee has worked in state service for 33 years. 24 of those years were with TDLR. He came to TDLR in 1997 after serving with the State Water Commission. He joined TDLR as an investigator in the Water Well Drillers program, which was transferred over to TDLR at that time. And when I came to, he actually joined us as an investigator in that program, which was in enforcement. At that time. When I joined TDLR a few years later in 2000, Lee was already a supervisor of the investigators in that program, and shortly thereafter he moved up to become the manager of that program after the previous manager retired. In around 2004, we're not entirely sure of the date, but we think it was 2004, Lee and the Water Well program as a whole moved over to the Compliance Division, which is now known as the Regulatory Program Management Division. And Lee became the manager of multiple programs at that time, including still the Water Well program, but also the boiler program and the boxing or combative sports program. So combative sports is a particular interest for Lee, even outside of TDLR. He has been in, around, or leading the regulation of boxing and combative sports for 47 years of his life. And I just want to say that as he led the Texas boxing program through this pandemic, he's been well informed, he's been compassionate, and he's been very deliberate about making decisions that put safety first. And I'm so thankful we had him in the role during this time. Personally, I feel that Lee and I have kind of grown up together at TDLR. And so I feel like I'm speaking about a brother as well as a colleague. I could not be more proud of Lee and everything that he's contributed to our great state. And I wish him congratulations and all the best in whatever his next chapter has in store for him.
Thank you, Christina. I got to see Lee at the governor's office when he got to meet the champ and be able to, so it's good, exciting to hear him moving on, and we're heartbreaks, but it's a well-earned retirement.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Francis, real quick, we're gonna miss Lee a lot, and the caulk in the gaps he filled for us are gonna be difficult to find someone that can replace him. And everybody's replaceable, but Lee did those little things that allowed us to go well. And Lee just joined us at the meeting. Dr. Callis, he's a Beaumont boy, and so you know what that builds into somebody growing up in the Beaumont area, in the Golden Triangle. It builds a toughness, a lot of smart that comes with it. I say that Lee is a combination of John Wayne meets Professor X. He's got this brashness about him, but he also knows how to put teams together, and he knows how to lead. We're going to miss him tremendously. The things that he did for our programs and building TDLR, just they won't be forgotten, Lee. So thank you, Lee, for so much. And Mr. Chairman, I think he's joined us on the screen there.
Are you there, Lee? I didn't see you. Let's see your pretty face, Lee. All right. Can you hear us?
I think Lee was having a little difficulty joining the meeting earlier, so I'm not sure if he's still struggling with a connection.
Okay. Okay. Well, to make sure you express our gratitude on behalf of the commission, I would argue that he's the watermelon seeds of the watermelon as opposed to cock. I mean, the analogy, I'm not sure we're gonna go with, but we'll figure that out as I mock Mr. Francis, which is my job, and my pleasure actually too. So Lee, if you can't hear us, thank you, we love you, Godspeed in your new season, and you always have a warm place in our hearts. All right,
I think it's back on Christina.
Christina? Are we ready?
This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mike.
Chairman, Commissioners,
Wait,
it's
hang on,
Mike
Mr.
here,
Mike,
recommended.
Mr. Lee.
Oh, there's Lee.
Did you get to hear all the wonderful things we said about you? We can't hear you, Lee.
That's the only thing, that's the only problem.
There it is, man. We can
There
hear
you
you
go,
now.
now we can hear you. Did you hear what we got to say about you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Just let you know that I said more eloquent things than Mr. Francis, and that's about all you need to hear, I guess. Is there anything else, Mr. Francis, other than we love you, we have a great admiration for you and your season, all right? And we will follow up with some comments. Looking forward to it. And you always have a place here. Mr. Francis?
Lee, you're the man. I'm gonna miss you tremendously. You know the connection you and I have going way back. Thank you for everything you've done, my friend. You left a mark.
He said something about John Wayne. I'm not sure where that went, but we're gonna leave it there.
Lee's got that swagger about him. Everyone knows it.
All right, Lee. Would you like to say anything to the commission? You're on mute, Lee. We'll postpone it, and you're.
Oh, here he goes.
Can you hear us? We're not gonna hire you as an IT guy, Lee. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So don't come back here for an IT application. Just not gonna happen. All right,
Oh.
all right. Can you hear us, Lee? Are you there? Say something. No? I don't think he hears. All right. We'll bring him back and we'll be able to, you'd be welcome to
Thank you.
address the commission. All right, Lee? We appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, Mike? Can you hit the mute button? Unmute.
Got
There you
it.
go.
How's that? Mr.
There
Chairman,
you go. All
Commissioners,
right.
Mike Harris with the Deputy Executive Director at TDLR. Yeah, I too want to express my sentiments to Lee and let you know that it's been great working with you these last few years, and we really are going to miss you, and especially at these fights. So happy retirement, and you're now the envy of a lot of people at TDLR being able to retire. So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, real quickly, just want to bring you up to date on a couple of things. My IT staff has been working diligently to provide a advisory board online application system, which, because of the legislative changes that took place in our sunset bill, we had to make a few changes to the online application because of the boards that were now leaving and the ones that are being combined. So that should be launching here fairly quickly in the next few days. But for everybody that's listening, we would let you know that you can now go online and apply for several different boards, and we encourage you to go out and take a look to see what all is there. My financial services team is, of course, just trying to get everything ready. We're closing out this fiscal year and this biennium and trying to get everything set up, ready to go for fiscal year 22 for the next legislative biennium. So they've been working diligently at that. On the hub activity, to date, we have been to 8 various hub activity events and actually attending them either in person or online. I can tell you that on our semi-annual report that we pulled down from the comptroller's office, the state hub percentage is 8.34, while our percentage is at 34.4. So we're very active in the hub activity. That's all I have, and I'll be able to answer any questions that you'd like.
Excellent. All right, any questions, commissioners? All right, Dr. Callis,
Thank you,
can you hear me? Yes, sir. Thank you, Mike. Dr. Callis.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I know
sir.
you gotta go to your OR. Thank you for what you do. You're obviously good at what you do because you're not that good looking. So, so keep it up. Keep up with the hard work. All right, Dr. Callis?
Yes, sir. Thank you all very much. Y'all stay safe out there.
Thanks for making time, Dr. Callis. We appreciate
Thanks,
it very much.
sir. Thank you all. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. David, Mr. Gonzalez, correct? Mr. Gonzalez.
Good morning, Chairman Figueroa. Good morning, Chairman Figueroa, Commissioners. David Gonzalez, Deputy Executive Director of Licensing Services. I too want to thank Lee for his wisdom and his savvy and his moxie. Um, we grew up together at TDLR. He's been there 24 years. I've been there 25, and definitely couldn't have done the work that we did, especially in the RPM programs, without his help with boilers, combative sports. I mean, he's just he's a Johnny on the spot for us, and always has been. So definitely wish him well. A couple other items I want to make mention of that I think are important for you to hear. So you've seen it in your reports, the 500-page reports that y'all receive from us, but the very last page is the licensing numbers. I'm just pleased to report that our work backlogs are actually trending down in many of the program areas, and our license issuance is trending up for our licensees. As Brian has done, I want to take just a minute to recognize our licensing staff on how hard they've been working through all the challenges we've had with COVID and all the protocols. You know, they take their responsibilities very seriously because they do understand that it's someone's livelihood is attached to each application. They all feel a lot of pressure. We push them, and they have a lot of work on their plates, but we pressure them to process each application as quickly as possible. They've got customer service division staff telling them the phone calls are coming in, E&E staff that are having to look up things to support the licensing issuance. So it's truly a team effort to make it happen. But while they're doing all this, they're trying to make sure to keep the public safe by ensuring each and every license requirement is being satisfied as required by state law. So the only other thing I want to make mention of is a new announcement in regards to our customer service division. We've completed interviews in our search for a new customer services division director. I'm pleased to announce that the job has been filled by our very own Tuan Nguyen. Now, he has been with TDLR since 2014. He was previously serving as one of 3 managers under Trey Seals, who recently departed TDLR. And I just want to have you join me in congratulating Tuan Nguyen in this achievement. He's put in some hard work, and we've got a lot more for him, and he's going to need our support. So congratulations, Tuan Nguyen. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Okay, Mr. Francis.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Francis, Executive Director with TDLR. One of the things that you hear us often talk about, and Mr. Chairman, you've echoed it as well, is that TDLR is a family. We care about each other. And when one hurts, we all hurt. I wanted to bring up the speed on two losses to our family recently. Bibi Perez, who worked for us for years. She passed away a week and a half ago. She just recently retired, like within the last 6 months, and Bibi was instrumental in our transfer from the Cosmetology Commission to TDLR. There's no doubt that she made it smoother, she made it better, and we're gonna miss her. And Mr. Chairman, you would have loved her because she always put me in my spot. Mr. Francis, you're talking, but you're not right. You know, Bibi said it like it was, and she's one of those folks that spoke truth to power, and she allowed me and helped Bill and I become better leaders, and so we're gonna miss her. The other thing is I want to just acknowledge the struggle that 2 of our folks are going with. Sharon Hamoya recently lost her father. He was her hero. He was a welder, he was a tough man, and taught her a lot about life, and I see it in her. When I have the tough decisions, she's the one that's standing firm and helping me. And I know that's got to come from the welding background because she actually worked in his welding shop during the summer. She was the only girl there, but she did the same work that the folks did there. And so want to acknowledge that. And of course, our dear friend David just lost his grandfather within the day. And so just want to love on them, recognize that our family is important to us. We're people and we love each other. So I just wanted to say that.
That's good. Well, as chairman, I get a lot of privileges, so I'm going to give us a moment of silence for David, for your grandpa, Sharon's father, and for Bibi, that we just take a moment, if you don't mind. All right, thank you for that.
So much, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Anything else, Mr. Francis?
No, sir.
Mr. Bowman?
Absolutely.
Just really quickly, Mr. Chairman.
Speak up, Mr. Bowman, please.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Brad Bowman, General Counsel. I wanted to just bring one item to your attention. there is a one pager in your materials about the Open Meetings Act waiver going away September 1. So as you know, Governor Abbott issued a waiver of certain provisions of the Open Meetings Act during COVID. And that has enabled TDLR and lots of other agencies to hold virtual meetings the way we've been doing these meetings, all this time. That waiver is going away September 1, and that handout that Alex and Molly put together for your packet just kind of outlines what that means for TDLR, and essentially what it means is we revert back to the open meetings law as it currently is, which does have provisions for things like video conferencing, teleconferencing under certain conditions. They're somewhat different than under the waiver. So we'll be looking at that going forward and what that means for our meetings. So I just want to bring that to your attention that that's happening and available to answer any questions.
Great transition. My objective, and I've said this many times, is to put the agency back into a situation where we're at max capacity to serve the best way possible, while making sure that everybody is safe and comfortable. But I want us to understand that commissioners, we lead in that regard. So I'm going to be reaching out to each commissioner to make sure they understand our obligations, commitment to the commission in regards to being here, being present, and making sure that we get back to in the thematic way the governor has pressed the state, the legislatures, and everybody else. So I think that's important. So as we play this out, the year we'll do, but I'm looking for your input as well, making sure we do it in the way you feel comfortable. All right, anything else, Mr. Francis?
Mr. Chairman, without question, I think this is one of the smoothest meetings we've done online. And I just wanted to commend Tamla and Christine, Mike Vickle, Kevin Harris. I want to commend Jerome and Tom for helping us out. And Brad and his team are instrumental. There's a lot of folks behind the scenes that make us look good, make you look good. A lot of hard work that goes into this. But no, it's really been a good meeting, and this is a format that we can continue to use, even under what Brad talked about, having the commission here, having audience here, and still allowing the public to come virtually. I think we're really positioned for doing what you want, but doing with that level of safety and also that level of class that you demand of us as well.
Right. And commissioners, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Commissioners, I asked, well, Tom, Gary, and I'll make sure, take the effort to call these advisories, get involved with these advisories, but also as we reconstitute ourselves under the way things are going to be, enforcement, they're out in the field reps, as these people play out, let's be there for them, okay? All right. October 2nd, or I'm sorry, 5th, check me. October 5th is our next meeting. I think that's what I wrote down. Tam, is that correct? Nod your head. Okay, there you go.
Yes, sir.
October 5th. It'll be here. So mark it on your calendar and we'll go from there. Any other comments? If not, the meeting is adjourned.